A non-poetry reader, myself, is going to be attempting to read some poetry for fun, maybe? And I'm kind of scared. Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I have, to be honest, always been very anti-poetry. I don't think there's anything like wrong with poetry, but the only time I've ever read it really is for school, either in high school, undergrad, or for grad school, and I have always very strongly disliked it. I have not been a fan of what we've had to read in the past, but I feel as though my perspective on the poetry genre is very small. So I wanted to do some experimenting this year and try out a new to me genre that I read for fun. So I am giving myself choices on what to read. I'm not being forced to read this poetry for school. This is me wanting to try poetry that I think I might enjoy just based off the themes that are included in some of these books. And I'm very scared about it. I feel as I've oftentimes let poetry control me in the sense that like I let it confuse me. I don't think I have put forth the effort always to try to understand it. I have just felt very frustrated by it in the past when I've had to read it for school, and I want to change that. So I'm starting a reading vlog where I try to read a couple of poetry books as a non-poetry reader. We're gonna see if I enjoy them. I'm picking sad poetry because I enjoy sad things and I feel as though I'll be able to relate to them, and that might help me in my enjoyment of these poetry collections. But I'm starting that today and I think it's gonna be a fun ride. So for those of y'all who are new to my channel, I do primarily read romance and thrillers, but this month I'm going to be experimenting with poetry. I have 3 books that I plan to read. I have the first book with me. I am home for the weekend at my parents' house, and I want to start this book this weekend while I'm at home. I do plan to buy my second book tomorrow at the bookstore. I will take you all along with me, hopefully, but I do plan to buy book 2 tomorrow for this video. But as I said a second ago, I do tend to gravitate towards sad things in general when it comes to literature. I love a good thriller, I love a good happy romance, but I also really enjoy being up in my feels and being emotional and crying and getting upset. So I have picked out poetry collections or poetry books that I feel will probably do that. This first book that I have right here, I got used at a bookstore, which is very exciting, and I think it's gonna be fun in a sad way because it's a sad book, I think, just based off, or it's sad and then it turns hopeful based off what I've read so far of it, just off the back kind of and the author's intro page. But the first book of poetry that I'll be trying out is Light Filters and Poems by Caroline Kaufman. Sorry, my battery died as it always does in the middle of filming. But this is a poetry collection, I guess is what you call it, that is split into 4 parts. It is sad, but it does end up hopeful. So the first section is called The Darkness Falls. The second section is called The Night Persists. The third one is The Dawn Breaks, and the final section is The Sun Rises. So I don't know why I'm saying this because I have not even read a poem in it yet, but I do think that I will be able to resonate with some of the things that the author talks about in here. In her note, she says that she writes about self-harm, suicide, mental illness, recovery, sexual assault, abusive relationships, violence, and other issues that may not be the easiest to swallow. I feel as though some of these are gonna hit me really hard, but that's a good thing. I think I say this in a lot of my videos, but words are so powerful. And poetry is not something that I have allowed to be powerful personally because I've always just been swamped in annoyance that I've had to read poetry for school. So I'll be curious to see what this one is like. I'm not a poetry reader, y'all, but we're gonna try it out. And then tomorrow I'm gonna buy my second book for this video. I think it's gonna be a fast read. I don't want to just fly through these books because they are poetry and like some of the pages have 9 words on them, you know? I don't want to fly through them. I want to take the time to resonate and sit with these poems. but I still don't think they're gonna take me super long to read. So I should be able to fly through this book pretty quickly. I don't quite know how to review books like this, but I guess once I get through this one, I'll see what I can scramble together to say about this book. But it's gonna be a ride, I think. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's something that I really need to do as somebody who doesn't get out of their comfort zone very much. I need to try new things, and I do think that poetry, this type of poetry, is one that I would really enjoy and fall in love with, even though it is sad and hard to read at times, but that's just the reality of life, and I think that it can be really powerful. So I don't know if I'll update y'all in the middle of the poetry book or if I'll just read the whole thing and then hop back in here. I don't know, but I will come back in at some point with my thoughts on this one, and we'll see if I am turned into a poetry reader after this video. So I finished my very first poetry book, and I was going back and forth the whole time on if I was going to end up reading the poetry that I read, because like, of course, I feel as though for me at least it would be impossible to like love every single poem. There are so many in this book that I was like, well, like some I'm going to like more than others, some I might not resonate with, and that's fine. So I kind of kept going back and forth on if I was going to rate these books, but I think I am. And I finished Light Filters In yesterday, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I was pleasantly surprised how much I like this book, and maybe it's because I was reading it on my own terms and I found this book like based off my interests. And like when I read it, like read the back and kind of learned what it was about, I was like, oh, like this is definitely going to be something that I enjoy or something that I relate to, which is why I picked it up. But I liked it a lot. It's hard to talk about poetry, like summarize it, like give a synopsis, because each poem is like, they're different. They all kind of connect with each other, but they're not all the same, of course. But this is a poetry collection that is broken up into 4 parts. I will just read out what the 4 parts are. So the first part is about The Darkness Falls, second part is The Night Persists, the third part is The Dawn Breaks, and the fourth part is The Sun Rises. So we start off really deep into this discussion and reflection on depression, self-harm, hurt, loss, heartbreak, assault, but we slowly shift as the book progresses into hope and happiness and beauty that comes from those things. And I just thought it was so well done. I didn't love every single poem, of course, but for the most part I was in pain because I was like, man, this hit me. There was one poem, I'm gonna see if I can find it really fast, where I wrote, I want to gag over how much I relate to this. And I'll just go ahead and read the poem because these are stunning, honestly. But this one said, I'm scared. I want so badly to spill out my soul onto these pages, but some things are stuck. Some memories cling to the sides of my spirit, no matter how much I try to scrape them out. And I really, really resonated with the some memories cling to the sides of my spirit. And I was like, man, I could just gag over how relatable this is. But man, I loved it. It was so freaking good. And I feel as though for a first poetry collection or first poetry book that I read, quote unquote, for fun as a book, as hard as this can be, as yeah, words, I had a great time with it though. Like I related to it, I connected with it, and even if I didn't, like, even if I hadn't gone through every single thing in the exact same way as the author, there was still such beauty to be found and how those experiences were described. And I just think that the author did a really elegant job sharing some of the hardest and most vulnerable parts of her life, and I really ended up enjoying it. So that's this book. First poetry collection is done. I don't know where my unboxing of my second poetry book is going to fall in this, but I mentioned in my first clip that I was going to go to Barnes & Noble and buy this book. I didn't end up doing that. I ended up finding it on Pango for way cheaper, so I just bought it online. Got it delivered though a couple of days ago, and I'm gonna go ahead and dive into it next. I have not heard the best things about it, but I must say the idea of this book intrigues me. So we're gonna try it out. It's a celebrity poetry collection. It probably won't be a surprise once I show it on the screen. But the second book that I'll be reading is, or the second poetry collection that I'll be reading is Pretty Boys Are Poisonous by Megan Fox. Megan Fox is an actress. Never seen any of her movies or her whatever. She's been in TV shows. I don't know. Don't even know what she's been in. I see her reels with what's his face or whatever. I don't know. I used to see reels of them together. But I feel like this, like the title is something that like I feel like I can relate to. So we're gonna go ahead and try it out. I've not heard super great things about it, but if you've been curious about this poetry collection, then wait for my next update to find out my thoughts on it. But I feel like I'm going to relate to parts of it, but that's just me. So we'll see if I end up liking it as much as light filters in. But I do think that this was a very great collection of poems to start off with. We deal with a lot of hard topics but shift into beauty and hope, and I think it was just very well done overall. Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, I think, is just going to be me getting angry and upset about boys. But I think it'll be an adventure. So I'll hop back in here in a couple of days whenever I end up getting this one and finishing it, but I'll report back to y'all soon, hopefully. I finished reading Pretty Boys Are Poisonous last night, I think it was last night, and I'm sad because I didn't end up liking this one very much. I gave it 2 stars. I thought that because I was kind of new with poetry, some of the more technical aspects of it that I had seen reviews about not being super great wouldn't necessarily bother me or be noticed by me because I don't know anything about poetry really. But I think my issue with this one, or I know my issue with this one, is really just the fact that I didn't really understand a lot of what she was writing, which is fine. That's probably just a me thing. There were a couple of poems that I loved, like truly, but I wasn't really feeling as much as I felt with the first book that I read. And most of the poems I just read really quickly and was like, I don't know what was going on here, so that's a bummer. But I don't want to spend too much time like talking about the negatives of it. But it was fine. It was, yeah, I mean 2 stars, so I guess it wasn't really that fine. But I did have a couple of poems that I really liked. Let me see if I can read one for y'all. Let me see what my tab is meant again. I only had 3 colors in this poetry collection as well. Let's see, go to one of the relatable ones. Okay, let's do actually this one. So we've got this. The art was very pretty, and I will say I did like the art. But this poem says, I know that I'm too good for you, but I still crave Hades' touch, even though it's harsh and unforgiving. I still choose an eternal winter with you over an evanescent spring with someone else. I'm still willing to live in the shadows because somewhere along the way I learned that I don't deserve to see the lights. And man, like that one, that hit me big time, and I thought it was really good. I might print it out and put it in my, I have to keep like a journal this year for my nonfiction class, and one of the journals that we have to keep is just called a commonplace book, where we can write down quotes that we hear and like things from books that we read that really stand out to us. So I might print this one out and tape it into that collection of like writings or quotes that I have currently going on. I think I'm actually going to do that once I finish this clip. But overall, unfortunately, I just didn't really understand a lot of them or really feel connected with them, which is a bummer. But that one's done, which means that I will be diving into my third poetic collection for this vlog, my third and final one. And that is going to be, I also got this one at the same place that I got Light Filters in, which was McKay's. But my third book is going to be Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. I've seen this one around more frequently than a lot of other poems, I guess. Like, I knew that I had seen this one before when I picked it up, but the poems don't like look super long, most of them. So it should be another quick but hopefully impactful read. But this is a poetry and prose collection about heartbreak, love, and raw emotions. So this one, hopefully I will get all of my feels during. I think I will though, but I do plan to annotate this one as well. I think I'll be able to read it over the next couple of days, and hopefully I enjoy this one better than Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, but we'll see. I mean, you know, poetry, not every collection is going to be for me, and that's totally fine. I was hoping for more with this one and I didn't feel that, but that's okay. Hopefully Pillow Thoughts, that was a good one. I actually ended up buying this author's other book that was also at McKay's when I got this one. I forget what it's called. It's called like Watering the Soul, I think, or something like that. Yeah, Watering the Soul. I'm not going to read it for this vlog, but I thought this cover was super cute. So I was like, I'm gonna buy it too. With like the little mystical creature on it. But this book was $4, so I think this one was about the same price, which we love to see. But I'll hop back in here once I finish this book, and hopefully I will have maybe not cried, but felt some pain over what is being shared in this collection. I have finally finished this third and final poetry book for this vlog, and I'm giving it 2 stars as well. I really struggled with this collection of poetry and prose. I guess I didn't realize when I first picked it up how much of these pages would be full of prose rather than poetry. And it's all fine and dandy, like I don't care about like some of them being prose versus some of them being poetry, but for me it was really just the fact that I did not connect with essentially anything that was going on, even though there are similar themes to what was being talked about in Light Filters In and Pretty Boys Are Poisonous. Like, the themes in all of these books are essentially the same. We're dealing with loss and grief and loneliness and hope and finding happiness and beauty in yourself and the world. So there was no reason why I shouldn't have connected with some of what was being said. I just didn't connect with it. I do think that it was very repetitive, which didn't help. I don't know why I didn't feel that way even in the other 2 books. Even though I struggled with Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, I didn't feel as though the same thing was just being repeated over and over again. But with this one, I do feel as though it was just kind of the same thing for 200 and some pages. There are sections in this book. There's a section called If You Are Missing Somebody, or If You're Missing Someone, and a section of If You Are Lonely. But I just didn't love it. I'm very bummed about it because after Light Filters In, I guess I thought that I have found my poetry era, but maybe I just haven't quite found all the right poetry for me yet. Because Pillow Thoughts was not my favorite, unfortunately, and neither was the Megan Fox book. I'm gonna go grab the final 2 books that I read, or the other 2 books that I read, so I can wrap up this vlog. But I honestly don't know why I start and end my various sentences or sections with the word but here we are. So anyway, I had very high expectations for these 2 books after ending up loving Light Filters In. I truly enjoyed this book. I related to it so hard for so much of it, and I just really felt connected to what the author was sharing in this one. I don't know quite what went wrong with Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, aside from the fact that I just don't think I understood what Megan was saying in a lot of the poems. Now, there were a couple that hit me very much, and I love those ones, but I am bummed about this one, and I am also bummed about Pillow Thoughts. After the first couple of poems, I knew that this wasn't going to be one that I was planning to annotate or tab because I just wasn't feeling connected or captivated or like tuning in with what was being shared in these pages, which I am sad about. I do have one of this author's other poetry collections that I might keep and try out at a later time, and I might slow reading poetry down a ton by maybe just reading 1 or 2 poems a day. I have been working on this vlog for almost a month now, 3 weeks since I started doing it on Martin Luther King Jr. week, or on the week of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, back in January. So it's been almost a month since I started this vlog. So I might slow it down even more and not try to like just get through the books, you know. I don't feel like I did that with these ones. I do feel as though I took my time with them. I didn't read a poem a day. I did read most of these in 2 or 3 days, but I didn't skim them. I didn't rush through them. I feel like, especially with light filters in, I did take my time to kind of like sit in them and what was being shared, and I loved it. So this vlog, I mean, I tried poetry. I tried something that's kind of new to me because I'm not being forced to read poetry for school currently, which is great. So I got to kind of explore a new genre. Didn't find too many favorites, unfortunately, but Light Filters In was definitely a hit for me, and I would love to read more from this author. I think she has 1 more book out currently. I looked at her Instagram a couple of weeks ago after I first finished Light Filters In, and she's been inactive for a couple of years. But she does have a 2nd book that came out that I might end up snagging if I can find it anywhere for not super expensive, because this one was truly super good and I would recommend it. It is very hard though. All of these books deal with very heavy topics, as I've already mentioned, but Pretty Boys Are Poisonous, I mean, it's not widely loved from what I've seen, but I had no expectations because I don't know poetry. I don't know what is the word, like the technicalities behind poetry. I have very little experience, so I was kind of just like, let's go with the flow and feel all the angst regarding boys, you know, and how much they're kind of the worst. But anyway, not really, not all guys, but didn't love this one, unfortunately. And then Pillow Thoughts as well, which is not one that I really ended up connecting with. But that's this poetry reading vlog. I am excited and glad to have tried something new, explored a little bit outside of my comfort zone. That's always fun, and of course it was great that I found a favorite in the first book that I read for this vlog. But if you have read any poetry or have any recommendations for me, feel free to comment down below and let me know your recommendations. I would love to hear what you have to say about poetry. I would love to keep reading it. I just think I have to find the right style for me, the right authors for me, but I cannot wait to dive into more Caroline Kaufman in hopefully the near future. But that is all that I have for this reading vlog. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.